This pregnant, Scott was trapped inside the car with the world during the long trip home. To him it was a word packed with unpleasant connotations. He could not associate it with Dory. He could not relate it to himself, to Scott Rowland, Jr. It could not have happened. It just could not have. They were too careful, things were too good between them to have everything fall apart with an accident. Pregnant. No matter how high, he turned the volume of the tape deck. The music would not drown out the world. It was not a mistake, not a cruel practical joke. Dory was pregnant, and he was responsible. What was it going to do to them? Involuntarily, his mind reverted to the first time that world had torn his world apart. His mother was screaming it at his father, and his father was screaming back. 7.5-year-old Scott Rowland Jr. lay awake in his bed trembling, wondering what the shooting meant. His friend Alvin's mother had been pregnant, and now Alvin had a baby brother. Was he, Scott, going to have a brother? Scott did not think so. Alvin's mother has been happy about a baby, not mad, and Scott was hearing another word bang shouted in the next room, an ugly, ominous word that made him shiver despite the weight of the covers. Divorce. Scott lay still, afraid to move, for fear he had missed something, a word, a phrase that would enable him to make sense of what he was hearing. It would be a long time, months and months, which to a child seemed more like forever and forever, before he would understand the full significance of that argument. But even if he did not understand, he knew, with a child's unerring intuition, that something terrible was happening, something that threatened the foundations of his life. "Your daddy is gone," his mother said, when his father did not come home from work the next night. "Gone where?" Scott asked. Bitterness sharpened his mother's voice as she said, "Gone for good." Days later, Scott asked, "Is Daddy dead?" His mother harumphed, "No such luck. If he was dead, there is be insurance, and I would not be having to hunt for a job. Will I ever see him again? If he wants to see you, I might have to let him." 2 weeks later, Scott's father was waiting for him after school on a Friday afternoon. Scott was so relieved to see that his father really was alive that he dashed into his father's arms and clung to him, saying, "I missed you, Daddy," over and over again. "I have got good news," his father said. "You are going to spend the weekend with me." It was true. Scott's mother had packed a suitcase for him, although she seemed to resent having to do so. "This is where I live now," his father said, unlocking the door to an apartment with rooms so small it reminded Scott of a dollhouse he had seen once. But the most surprising revelation during Scott's visit was a woman named Melinda, who had curly blonde hair and smelled like the perfume counters at the front of department stores. "Melinda lives here too," Scott's father said. Scott shook the hand Melinda offered, but her presence confused him. He had an instinctive grace that made him wait until he was alone with his father before he asked, "Do you like Melinda better than Mother?" His father looked very sad. "I used to love your mother, Scott, but your mother and I, well, were different people than we were a long time ago when we got married. We want different things. Melinda and I have worked together at the office and we do want the same things. I did not mean for this to happen, son. Sometimes we can't help the way we feel. Melinda and I are more alike than your mother and I are." Scott was trying to be big. He did not want to cry, but he felt the humiliating wetness on his cheeks and whipped them with the back of his hand. "Do you love her more than you love me?" he asked. "Is that why you went to live with her now, instead of with me?" His father hugged him again. "I love you, Junior, and I will never stop. Your mother and I can't live together anymore, but that doesn't mean you and I can still be close." It felt good to hear his dad call him Junior, the way he always had. "You can come visit me," his dad continued, "and we will do things together. Would you like that?" "Will Melinda be here all the time?" "She lives here, Scott," his father said, "and she wants to get to know you." He paused, reading the emotions on his son's face. "But sometimes we can go do things together, man, things like ball games or go-karts. How's that?" Scott nodded because he knew his father would be disappointed if he did not agree, but he was not at all sure Melinda wanted to get to know him. The way his father had said, he did not think Melinda liked him, and he don't like Melinda much. Back at home, he told his mother about Melinda and instantly regretted doing so, because it made her angry. "So," she said, "you met the slut?" Scott could tell slut was an ugly word because of the way she said it. "I suppose she is pretty," his mother said. Afraid of injuring his mother further, Scott just shrugged his shoulders. His mother looked at him suddenly and cocked her head at an angle as she studied his face. "You look just like your father. You always have. I wonder if the bastard will, too." Bastard? Another new word. It would be months before Scott linked the new words to Melinda's swelling abdomen. Melinda was pregnant, that made her a slut. Her baby was bastard. His parents were getting a divorce. That was his mother's version. His father's version was quite different. He said Melinda was a beautiful, loving woman and their baby was not bastard, because Scott's father married Melinda the day his divorce from Scott's mother became final, which was several days before Scott's stepsister was born. Torn between conflicting attitudes, Scott did not know whom or what to believe, so he formed his own opinions. Very quickly, he developed the habit of keeping his opinions to himself. It became a matter of self-preservation for a child torn between battling parents and step-parents, a child struggling to keep his father's love from being usurped by step-sibling, a child watching his parents destroy themselves, living with a bad choice and irrevocable consequence. Pregnant, like the echo of the world shooted over 2 decades before, it was sounding in Scott's life again, threatening as ever, powerful as ever, destructive as ever. Dr. Latan was doing the usual probing and poking of Dory's abdomen as she lay on the examination table. "Any problems?" "I don't think so," Dory said. "Nothing out of the ordinary. I still tire easily." "How about morning sickness?" "A little more lately than before, but not too bad." "Well, I could prescribe something for nausea, but I advise my patients to avoid the drugs and take the crackers route unless the sickness becomes unbearable." He motioned for her to sit up. "You tell the father about this baby yet?" Dory sobered noticeably. "Yes." The doctor's stare was fixed on her face. Waiting for more information. When it was not forthcoming, he prompted, "Well, it looks like I am in this solo," Dory replied. "I went to see you in my office when you are dressed," he said abruptly and stalked out of the room. "A nice bedside manner," Dory tapped caustically, climbing off the examination table and shrugging off the ridiculous examination smoke. Dressed, she stepped across the hall into the doctor's inner sanctum. Was this routine? She thought the monthly exam was a cursory prodding and probing and see you next month. When the doctor walked in some 15 minutes later, she asked, "Is everything okay with the baby, I mean?" "You are a textbook case," Dr. Latham replied drolly. The leather cushion whooshed and the wood and springs groaned in protest as he settled into the chair behind his desk. "It's a perfectly normal pregnancy." "Then why the private conference?" "You are 2 weeks away from the end of your first trimester," he said. She nodded. "That's the crucial time, isn't it? I mean, if I have not had trouble yet, there is a good chance I won't have any trouble at all." "You have been reading?" "That sounds almost like an accusation," she replied. "I just like to know what's going on with my body. Is that a problem for you?" "The question is," the doctor said, "is it a problem for you?" "I don't understand what you are driving at, Dr. Latham." "You are obviously interested in your pregnancy, Dory. I just want to be sure that you are aware of the end product. You tell me you are in this pregnancy. What was that clever little phrase you used? I believe it was solo." "I don't believe this," Doris said. "You are disapproving of me because I am not married? You are my doctor, not my minister. What right?" "Whoa," the doctor said, holding up his hand like a traffic cop. "Slow down. Hear me out before you start getting self-righteous. I could not care less whether you are single or married or living with 7 dwarfs." Dory gave him an impatient, disgruntled little sniff and folded her hands in her lap contritely. She had been referred to him by a friend who had been going to him for ages and ages. Maybe she needed someone a little younger with a more contemporary perspective. "I know what you are thinking," he said, as though reading her mind. "But I have been taking care of pregnant women for a long time, and I have seen thousands of them in thousands of sets of circumstance. So if you will, grant me the wisdom that comes from such vast experience and hear me out." She nodded to him as if acknowledging his point with a silent touche. He continued, "You are a smart woman, Dory, and you are open to new experience. Right now, being pregnant is an adventure, and going solo is a challenge. But when you get to the point you can't see your toes and realize you are going to have a baby to deal with, you are going to have second thoughts. You are going to panic, and which you had thought this thought now, before it was too late." "You are wrong," she said. "Am I? You told the father, thinking deep down he was going to want to get married and play papa? Well, he did not, and believe me, because I have seen this situation hundreds of times, that if he did not turn papa as soon as he heard, he is not going to join the team further down the road." "I don't care," Dory argued. "I can take care of my baby. A lot of women raise children alone, and I will have it better than most. I can afford to make a home for this child, and I know I will love it. Have you ever spent much time around children?" "My younger sister." "How much younger?" 5 years. That's not enough space to give you perspective. You were a child when she was a baby. No nieces or nephews." Dory shook her head. "You had better give this some more thought," the doctor said. "Borrow a baby for a few days and get a taste for what you are in for. It is not playing house. Parenthood means round the clock accountability. You can't put a child on hold when you have a tough case in court or a special date." "I'm not naive, Dr. Latham. I'm not some story-eyed teenager who thinks I'm getting a real-life baby doll. My biological clock is ticking. You have got plenty of good years ahead of you, young lady. Panic is no reason to have a baby." Dory felt the heat and anger in her cheeks. How dare he question her decisions, try to play God in her life? "How dare you question my decision or try to play God in my life?" she said. I'm trying to point out a reality to you, young woman. 2 weeks from now, one of your major options will be closed to you, abolition, and this point will be simple, safe procedure. Tears were burying Dory's eyes, too filled with her nervous energy to sit in the chair another second. She bounded out of it. I do not want an abortion. Even Scoop, the father, was relieved when I told him I was not considering an abortion. If he knows about this child and has decided to let you go solo, then this man has relinquished his right to tell you what to do about this pregnancy. He has more of right than you do, Doris said. I would not be so sure of that, Dr. Latham said. He is feeling relief for his own conscience. I'm thinking about you and what this child will do to your life. It is not going to change his life appreciably. You are the one who is going to have to make all the accommodations. For once, Dory had nothing to say, no refutation. Deflated, she dropped back into her chair. The doctor got up, walked around the desk, and leaned against the edge of it, looking down at her. His voice was soft, placating. If you had come into my office last month on pins and needles hoping you were pregnant and then rejoiced in the news, I had half kept my counsel today, but you were shocked and not what I had called immediately overjoyed. You did not decide to have a baby. You are just afraid to decide not to. He pulled away from the desk and walked behind her chair and put his hand on her shoulder. 2 weeks, Dory. It is not my deadline. It is not yours. You think about it. You think about it long and hard. And don't go running to the absentia father for advice. It's your body and your decision, but I don't have to tell you that. I'm sure you have read the feminist propaganda. Dory's hands were trembling as she unlocked her car. She did not know whether which she was more of humiliated or infuriated, but she was glad. She had scheduled her appointment late in the afternoon, so she would not have to go back to the office afterward. She longed for the solitude of her apartment, the peace waiting for her dad. When she arrived, she locked the door behind her, kicked off her shoes, and exchanged her suit for a kaftan before collapsing into the billowing softness of her sofa. Peculiarly tough, she hated the tearfulness that seemed to accompany pregnancy. She wished she could cry, her head ashed with the pressure of the tears she had held in check in the doctor's office, but she could not cry. The solitude of her apartment closed in around her, cloaking her reassuringly, and the tension in her muscles began a gradual easing. The fan motor of the refrigerator hummed in the kitchen, and the water pipe creaked as someone in a distant apartment turned on a tap. Familiar sounds breaking through the absolute silence to render it friendly. Dory seldom watched television, often forgot to turn on the stereo. She enjoyed the cocoon quiet of the space. She called home. She tried to imagine this space, this normally tranquil place, filled with the noises of childhood, a baby's cries, the bumps, bangs, and the rattles of toys, the whirring of the washing machine, agitating around clothes stained with strained whatever it was babies ate, the proverbial pitter-patter of little feet. She troughed, mocking her own ignorance and naivety. Panic breathed hotly down her neck. Was she ready for baby, an invasion of her quiet space, her ordered life? Because of her career, she seldom had time for company. The only person she had shared her home with any regularity was Scott. Scott, Suddenly she longed to talk to him, to hear his voice, feel the human warmth of his body next to hers. Her body, her life, perhaps even her soul, was on schedule, accustomed to Scott's presence every other weekend. Tomorrow was Friday. Tonight she would pack for her trip to Gainesville. She was itching for Scott, and not just in the physical sense. That last strained attempt at conversation in her bedroom was the last time she had heard his voice. Sometimes they called each other between visits. Sometimes when they were busy with their respective careers, days passed and they realized they had not. She was desperate to talk to him, to know what he was thinking, how he was dealing with the idea of her pregnancy, but she wanted to give him time to deal with it, time and space in which to establish a perspective. Scott was an introspective person, a brooder. What would he have thought about the scene with the doctor? She wondered. Would he have been as incensed as she over the idea of scraping away their child? Would he have cared? Oh, Scott, would you care, or would you be relieved? The way you were when I said I did not want to get married just because of the baby. Do I want this child enough to raise it without you? She picked up the phone and dialed the back line at his sepia firm. His partner Mike answered and seemed surprised to hear her. He's at the campus this afternoon. It's Thursday, remember? Of course, Dory replied. I have been kind of busy. I guess I lost track of the week. You might catch him right after class at his office on campus. Or I could try and tell him to give you a call. That's okay, Doris said. I will call him at home tonight. Nothing urgent, I take it? No, nothing urgent. Only our lives, our love, our child. How's Tallahassee? Is the cloud of hot air still hanging over the state capitol? Dory managed a small laugh. It is still there. The politicians keep it replenished. You are coming in this weekend, are not you? I think so. Think? Had not she just been thinking about packing? Since when was not she sure? Why don't you talk Scott into bringing you by the house while you are here? Susan's always asking why we don't see more for you. I had enjoyed seeing her, and the baby. How old is she now? 9.5 months. She must be getting big. She is learning to walk. That must be very special. Dory, you are all right, are not you? You sound a little distracted. I think I might be coming down with something, Dory said. The possibilities of what she was coming down with seemed endless. Cowardice, selfishness, self-doubt. I hope not. I'm sure Scott's looking forward to seeing you this weekend. Dory bit her lip to keep from asking if Scott had said so. If he had mentioned this weekend in particular, she wanted to ask if Scott seemed distracted lately, if he seemed thoughtful, if he too was asking about Mike's baby, wondering what it was like to have a 9-month-old daughter who was learning to walk. She wanted to say, oh, and by the way, did Scott mention I'm pregnant? But it would not be fair to Scott to pump his business partner and best friend for information, so she said, maybe we will see you, and followed it closely with a goodbye. She hung up the phone more frustrated than ever, frustrated, tired, confused, and hungry. She had been too nauseated to eat this morning and too busy to eat lunch. Now her body was signaling that, despite emotional turmoil, she needed fuel to keep herself and another life going. Nothing in the fridge or pantry appealed to her, so she traded her kaftan for baggy jeans and a long-tailed shirt, pulled on her oldest sneakers, and went out in search of food. She was not sure where she was headed. She was not sure about anything. Why should dinner he be any different? She was starting to hate making decisions, especially the nitpicking little ones like whether to head for a market for food to take home and prepare, or to go to a restaurant and let someone wait on her. Maybe she could go over to the Adam Street Commons while she dressed well enough for Andrews upstairs. Just the thought of Andrews made her hungry for mesquite grilled chicken. The melting pot might be easier to get in and out of. She could start with the cheese, fondue, and veggies, then maybe progress to shrimp or chicken, and finish up with fruit and angel food chunks dipped in chocolate. Half a block ahead, she spied the golden arches of a McDonald's. There was a playground out front, with several children climbing on brightly painted gym equipment. Borrow baby, the doctor had said. Not having a baby to borrow, she had do the next best thing. Besides, she had not had a Big Mac in years. She hit the brake and executed a hairpin turn into the McDonald's lot, ignoring the irate driver behind her, who knocked angrily and flashed an obscene gesture with his hand. The uninitiated would have captioned the same inside feeding time as the children's zoo. Unconsciously, Dory had been seeking children, and she had it the mother lode. Parents and children were everywhere. The woman in front of her heard a screaming toddler and attempted to call to older children while ordering a family dinner that included 3 happy meals. The toddler regarded Dory with curious, blueberry pie eyes over his mother's shoulder. Dory started back at the child, just curiously noting his slightly pug nose, his pink bowed lips, the errant curl of his thick brown hair. His wide-eyed expression was expectant waiting. Reflexively, Dory smiled. The toddler smiled back cunningly in that instant. Dory wanted to hug him so badly that the deprivation of not being able to do so left a metallic taste in her mouth. Maternal instinct. She tapped and wondered at the strength of the phenomenon. An argument broke out between the older children over who would carry the tray to the table, and the mother turned to referee, moving the boy from Dory's line of vision. The family stepped aside en masse, still haggling, and the teenager behind the counter asked for Dory's order. Dory's response was automatic from her college days. I will have a Big Mac, fries, and a diet. No, make that shake. What flavor? Chocolate, Dory said, feeling deliciously indulgent. She had been giving the overhead menu a cursory read over. You have salad now? She said. Yes, madam. The differential response from the teenager was jarring. Was she suddenly so ancient that teenagers called her madame? I will have salad too, she said, and then had to review the menu to decide what type. A man had joined the family haggling over getting the trays to the table, he said. What seems to be the problem here? The 2 children answered him at once, but he seemed to grasp the essence of the disagreement with the efficiency of an electronic radar and scrambler. You guys, he said, shaking his head, marvelously indulgent. He gave each of them a boxed Happy Meal and pointed them towards the sitting area. Here, now go find a table. He shot his wife a grin and put out his arms in invitation to the toddler. Come on, Joy. Joy, the little burglar, went to his father, and his mother picked up the tray and followed her husband to the table. Dory, still waiting on her food, followed with her eyes. The man was quite ordinary, pleasant-looking, slightly thick in the waist. His shoulder muscles strained the back of his shirt as he carried the boy in his arms, a daddy stepping in as the marshmallow authoritarian. Oh, Scott, I have never thought about it before, but you had been so good at being a daddy. Dory herself had had a father, not a daddy. She had been loved and respected, but never cuddled. The thought of her father, the judge at McDonald's, was as ludicrous as the idea of her mother taking up knitting baby booties. Scott's father would have been the daddy type had he not been torn apart by conflicting loyalties. Otherwise, he could not have hurt Scott so. Only a person who inspires love has the power to hurt a person that way, to jaundice his attitudes the way Scott's were. Dory had met Scott Rowland Sr. once, and her lasting impression was of sadness haunting his eyes. He had looked older than his true age, and walked with his shoulders stooped. Marriage to a maniacally possessive, compulsively jealous, domineering woman exacted a heavy toll from a man. Here you go, the teenager said, sliding the tray of food toward Dory. Dory carried it to a two-seater table near the windows overlooking the playground. She bit into her two all-beef patties, toasted the horseradish, a tang of the special sauce, and savored the divinity of a triple-decker sesame seed bun. The fries were hot and crisp, the shake thick and luscious. How could she have forgotten how wonderful fast food could be? She wondered as she tore open the envelope of salad dressing and squeezed it over her salad. Having eased the edge of her appetite, she turned her gaze to the playground, paying close attention to details of the slice of life seen outside, the clothes the children wore, the scrolls of concentration on their faces as they played, the way they interacted with their peers, their siblings, and on the fingers of the playground their parents. The distinct personalities of the children fascinated her. Simply by watching them play, she identified leaders and followers, adventurers and barouders, introverts and extroverts. She imagined them in courtrooms, the brooder sitting in the swing soberly pondering the world would be judged, the little boy dangling precariously from a window in the spaceship could grow into flamboyant showman who could charm a jury with it. The little girl urging a younger child up the steps of the slide will be the type to seduce a jury with soft-spoken persuasion. The adventurer at the top of the spaceship will be an aggressive prosecutor. It was unconstitutional to lump these little banks into a collective group and tack a single label on them. They were not kites. They were young individuals, each with a unique personality, perspective, and wide open potential. Were they born so different, or were they molded into introverts and extroverts, daredevils and dainties by their parents? The full realization of the sacred trust parents inherited with the birth of a child swept over her. What an awesome responsibility to let a child be the person he was born to be while helping him to be the best version of that person. The very thought of such responsibility was sobering. Unconsciously, Dory pressed her hand over her abdomen. The teeny life in her womb wagged scarcely and once, but it was safe for now, floating in a warm sea of fluid, an inimitable protective, climatized ocean ingeniously designed by nature. Could she keep it safe later, after it left that rarefied atmosphere and became dependent on her in a whole new way. Could she do it alone? She had finished her food. She tossed the cartons and napkins in the trash can and walked outside to the playground. The tables here were low and shaped like flowers. She sat down and took a long draught of her shake. The little girl who had been coaxing the smaller child up the steps of the slide came running over to the next table. Jenny went down the slide. She announced to a woman who was reading a paperback book. The woman put down her book. Yes, I saw that. She did not want to go, but I showed her how. I saw you helping her. I am going to show her the spaceship. That should be fun. The child's body was tensed with hope. Can we stay for hours and hours? Her mother laughed. Another 10 minutes. Mom, the child protested. That's not long enough. Her mother's eyebrows flew up. You had better go enjoy the time you have got. But, Rebecca... The girl's face pinched into a grimace of displeasure. But she turned and ran towards the spaceship, where the younger child was waiting for her. Within seconds, the two of them were starting up the run that led inside. That was a short-lived rebellion, Dory commented to the mother. The woman chuckled. Amazing, isn't it? Are they both yours? Shaking her head, the woman said, The little one is my niece. She is staying with us while her parents are on a trip. Your daughter seems to be taking her in behind. Rebecca thinks Jenny is one of her baby dolls, only better. She has been mothering her to death. Dory tried to remember if she had ever had a baby doll, but could not recall any. She had gone rough. A Barbie phase during her preteen years. Her Barbie had had a townhouse complete with a pool and a horse. Why could not she remember a baby doll? Which one is yours? The woman asked. Dory shrugged sheepishly. None of them. I have been thinking about having a baby. The woman gave her an interested look. It is a big step, isn't it? Yes, a very big step, and irrevocable. The woman laughed. No returns allowed. Was having children a difficult decision for you? No, the woman said somberly. We had been trying for years. I had two miscarriages, and we were beginning to lose hope that I would have a full-term pregnancy. How awful for you. It was awful at the time. She brightened visibly. But now we have Rebecca, and the doctor says there is no reason I can't have another. So we are hoping again. How old is Rebecca? 4. Rebecca and her cousin had reached the first level of the spaceship and waved through the round hole. Her mom waved back. She is very pretty, Doris said. A smile claimed the woman's entire face as her gaze lingered on her daughter. Yes, she is. She turned back to Dory. Of course, we try not to make a big deal of it. We don't want her to be conceited. There is a lot to motherhood, Dory laughed aloud. So many things to consider, to weigh one against the other, so many decisions to make. Yes, the woman agreed. There is a lot to it. It is not a simple job. Dory had more than enough to think about. She stood up. I have got to go, I hope. She was not sure how to wish someone luck with pregnancy. If it is meant to be, it will be, the woman said, understanding the sentiments Dory had not been able to express. She words spoken so calmly and with such assurance stayed with Dory as she drove to the mall, where she bought several books on pregnancy and continued on with her to her apartment. If it's meant to be, it will.